Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us today in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, Chapter 13. The Haṁsa avatāra answers the questions of the sons of Brahmā. Hare Krishna. Please join us for Jai Radha Madhav prayers. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Janant ke Vaishnavind ki Jantai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Please join us for Mangalacharan prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiryet. Shratam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto He Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Nashtiki. Hare Krishna. So please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, Chapter 13. The Haṁsa avatāra answers the questions of the sons of Brahmā. Text 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Sattvam Rajastama Iti.
Sattvam Rajastama Iti.
Guna Buddhena Chatmanaha.
Guna Buddhirna Chatmana.
Satvena Nayatma Hanyat.
Satvena Mauhanyat.
Sattvam Satvena Chavahi.
Satyam Satvena Chaivahi.
Please.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Sattvam Rajastama Iti.
Sattvam Rajastama Iti.
Guna Buddhirna Chatmana.
Guna Buddhirna Chatmanaha.
Satvena Mauhanyat.
Satvena Hanyat.
Sattvam Satvena Chaivahi.
Sattvam Satvena Chaivahi. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion and ignorance, pertain to material intelligence and not to the spirit soul. By development of material goodness, one can conquer the modes of passion and ignorance, and by cultivation of transcendental goodness, one may free oneself even from material goodness. Purport. Goodness in the material world never exists in a pure form. Therefore, it is common knowledge that on the material platform, no one is working without personal motivation. In the material world, goodness is always mixed with some amount of passion and ignorance, whereas spiritual or purified goodness, Vishuddha Sattva, represents the liberated platform of perfection. Materially, one is proud to be an honest, compassionate man, but unless one is fully Krishna conscious, one will speak truths that are not ultimately significant. And one will give mercy that is ultimately useless, because the onward march of material time removes all situations and persons from the material stage. Our so-called mercy and truth apply to situations that shortly will not exist. Real truth is eternal, and real mercy means to situate people in eternal truth. Still, for an ordinary person, cultivation of material goodness may be a preliminary stage on the road of Krishna consciousness. For example, it is stated in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that one who is addicted to meat eating cannot understand the pastimes of Lord Krishna. By cultivation of the material goodness, mode of goodness, however, one may become a vegetarian and perhaps come to appreciate the sublime process of Krishna consciousness. Since it is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita that the material modes of nature constantly rotate, one must take advantage of an elevated position in material goodness to step into the transcendental platform. Otherwise, as the wheel of time turns, one will again go into the darkness of material ignorance. Hare Krishna. Please join us for Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshitarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tadaham vande Shri Gurum Deenatarinam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So here, Uddhav is continuing to inquire from Logic Krishna about the situation of human beings, us basically, for our benefit, he's inquiring. Because he's a pure devotee of Lord Krishna and his situation is secure. But it's for our benefit, he's inquiring that one who has fallen in this material ocean, and they're constantly being, feeling the waves hitting them from all directions. How will they be able to overcome these material modes of material nature, and overcome and cross this ocean of nations, the material ocean, the material world? And Lord Krishna continues to reveal. So, capturing from previous chapter, in 12th chapter, Lord Krishna had actually identified the process. And it's a very easy process as per the description that we discussed in the last class. In that chapter, Lord Krishna reveals some amazing aspects that just by the association of Lord Krishna and his devotees, one can easily cross over this ocean of nations. Tesham aham samudhatam mityu sansara sagarat bhavami nachirat patha maya veshita chetasam. So again, Lord Krishna says that I am the swift deliverer from this ocean of nations, right? Mrityu sansara sagarat. So this Mrityu sansara is like a sagar, the ocean. And so to be able to cross over this ocean of nations, we can quickly take shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. So when we were discussing this, there was a question raised, how can we associate with Lord Shri Krishna? It's a very simple process again. Srila Prabhupada reveals is in most of his purpose in all his books, is simply by taking to the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna Mahamantra is a prayer that we are praying to Lord Shri Krishna and Mother Radha, right? Hara means Radharani. That please engage us in your service, and just this request in a humble mood. Tradapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reveals the secret that one thinking oneself more humbler than the grass on the street, more tolerant than the tree, ready to give all respects to others without expecting any respect from others, one can constantly chant and glorify the Lord. Kirtaniya Sadahari. And Lord Krishna revealed in the previous chapter that simply by association, right? Devotee association is also very important. We also talked about the 5 most potent forms of devotional services. First one is reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Worshipping the deities. Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different from Lord Shri Krishna. So when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, then we are worshipping him by our intelligence, right? And intelligence is above the mind, and mind is above the senses. So it is even a higher form of worship. And then the third one is staying at a dham. So where there is Krishna, the place becomes dham. So when we have Srimad Bhagavatam in our homes and we are reading them, so our home becomes dham, right? Religious places. Fourth is chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And fifth is devotee association, doing it in the association of devotees. So even though this is pandemic time, even though we are in a lockdown state, we can take that devotee association in the virtual world, online, Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, and so forth. Yet at the same time, if you are living with our families and other members, we can do the chanting of the holy name, we can do kirtan, we can read Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and so forth, in the association of all who are there, because everyone is a devotee of Lord Krishna. The way we understand is, was Srila Prabhupada, when he was asked, how many disciples do you have? And at that time, ISKCON was growing. So even though there were not many devotees, but Srila Prabhupada, being an expert Acharya, he reveals that I have many devotees, some know it, some don't. So similarly, from Shastras, from scriptures, we know that every living entity is actually an eternal servant of Krishna. Some know it, some don't. That's the difference. Some are in ignorance, some are driven by passion, and some are driven by goodness. And that is the subject matter of today's class. So here, interestingly, in the previous chapter, there are amazing facts also revealed by Logic Krishna. That one, even though one may be undergoing great endeavor, right? Like, acquiring, doing meditation, performing Ashtanga Yoga to get mystical siddhis, to be able to make things appear out of thin air, to be able to become heavier than the heaviest, to be able to become lighter than the lightest, and so many other of the age siddhis. One could be a great jnani doing speculative, philosophical speculation, and even one who is performing charity, or someone who is following various vows and penances, carrying out austerities, ritualistic sacrifices, performing great fire sacrifices, and even teaching of Vedic mantras to others, and personal study of the Vedas, or even following the renounced order of life. Still, one cannot achieve Logic Krishna. So that was revealed in the 9th verse of 12th chapter of 11th Canto. So all these great things which actually are very attractive in this material world can be actually, fruitless, because the true fruit we are looking as to attain is love of Godhead. Every other fruit that we are seeking, not directly relating to Lord Shri Krishna, is actually flickering in this, and it would be the cause of unhappiness and distress. So it is very important for us to focus ourselves, and as this verse that we covered today talks about that development of material goodness, just by coming to the mode of goodness, one can conquer the modes of passion and ignorance, because these three modes are constantly in competition with each other, and they are influencing us because of that. So we have to do cultivation. So by cultivation of transcendental goodness. So first we have to come to the mode of goodness, and then we have to engage in the transcendental goodness, so that we can free ourselves from the clutches of this even material goodness. And we can transcend the modes of goodness by situating in the mood of devotion as a devotee, serving the Lord. So one of the important aspects that Lord Shri Krishna is revealing, because he is continuing to answer the question that Uddhav has, like how can one free, oneself from the three modes of material nature and can go back home, back to Godhead. Later on, Shukdev Goswami reveals that it is this Kali age is a very, degrading age, right? It's an age of quarrel and hypocrisy. And men in this age are not very intelligent, right? Prayena alpayusha sabhya kalavasmin yuge jana manda sumanda matyo bandh bhagya praduta. So in this age of Kali, alpayu, right? People have less age. We can only live up to 100 years on an average. And that's also like many people even die early. And kalavasmin yuge jana, and they are quarrelsome by nature. Manda sumanda matyo. Manda is lazy. People are lazy. Men are lazy. Sumanda matyo is like they have very little intelligence. not very intelligent. Mandabhagya, and then they are unlucky on top of that, because whatever endeavor they do, because of being driven by laziness, by being quarrelsome, by being constantly disturbed, it doesn't result in positive responses. So being influenced in the mode of ignorance mostly, and then some in the mode of passion, they're constantly looking for happiness but facing always distress. They're constantly suffering. Mandbhagya, very unlucky, and upraduta. And so in this state, they're constantly disturbed. So Lord Krishna reveals how somebody takes shelter of him in Bhagavad Gita, right? Chaturvidha bhajante mam jagana sukritino arjuna artho jigyasu artati bhat, right? Artho jigyasu artati jnanischa bhatarshbha. So the four kind of men who take shelter of him: artho, one who is distressed; jigyasu, one who is inquisitive, looking at what is it all about; jigyasu; artharthi, artharthi is the one who is looking for some material benefit, wealth, opulences and so forth; and jnani, jnani is the one who is in knowledge and seeking further in knowledge to inquire more about the absolute truth. So Lord Krishna is revealing this to Arjuna. And here, that's what Lord Krishna is revealing again to Uddhava, who is a pure devotee, because Arjuna would sometimes take to demigod worship, right? To save the 10 sons of Brahmā, the 10 sons of Brahmā, Arjuna was meditating on Lord Shiva. He prays to Lord Shiva, thinking that it won't help to pray, to worship Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna has not been able to save the 9 sons of Brahmā. So in 10th Canto, we covered that. So here, Uddhava, he looks like Lord Shri Krishna. He's a cousin of Lord Krishna. He's a disciple of Brihaspati, right, the spiritual master of the demigods. And he's a very close associate and also acts as advisors of the Yadavas, the Yadu dynasty. And especially to Lord Shri Krishna. He actually is constantly serving Lord Shri Krishna, since he looks like Lord Shri Krishna, and he wears the clothes that have been given to him by Lord Shri Krishna. So he wears the clothes that Lord Krishna wears. Even the garland that Lord Krishna wears, he passes it on to Uddhava. So that's like Maha, that prasad, that's he's getting mercy of Lord Shri Krishna. So when he is dressed in the ornaments that have been given to him by Lord Shri Krishna, passed on, he looks very much like Lord Shri Krishna. Yet at the same time, he is appearing as servant of Lord Shri Krishna. He is a constant associate, a friend, a cousin, almost on the same level. So Uddhava, he is feeling this in the mood of separation. He is asking, because Lord Krishna has said that you have to take this message to Badrikashram, to the great sages, and especially to please Narayan Rishi. So this message is being imparted to Uddhava, and when somebody passes you a message, you may ignore it. But if you have to carry a message for someone else, you want to make sure that you understand the message perfectly well, so that when you get to the destination, and if there are further inquiries, then you are able to answer those questions. So that's why Uddhava wants to make sure that he gets the message very clearly. So even though in the 12th chapter he understood that the great personalities, right, the gopis, the Gopa boys, Nand Baba, Yashoda Mai, all these great personalities, Bali Maharaj, right, Prahlad Maharaj, these are the Daityas, right, the descendants of Diti and Kashyapa Muni. And many other great personalities had attained perfection just by taking shelter of Lord Shri Krishna's lotus feet and associating with devotees. Prahlad Maharaj had the association of Narad Muni. Dhruv Maharaj had the association of Narad Muni. Right? Bali Maharaj, he was directly worshipping Lord Vaman Dev. And of course, being a grandson of Prahlad Maharaj and son of Virochana, he was a true Kshatriya from his heart. Means, he was carrying out his dharma, his prescribed duties very well under the instructions of Shukracharya. The spiritual master of the Daityas, sometimes people also refer to him as spiritual master of the demons, but not all demons. Daitya specifically. He is, instructing them. And he's an expert in carrying out ritualistic ceremonies. So here, when Lord Krishna continues to reveal to Uddhava that when one is, rises above the modes of passion and mode of and ignorance and comes to the level of mode of goodness, which is still a material mode, so you're still under the impact of material modes, that however, at this particular place, one is able to understand religious principles. And so the four limbs of religion are also very important to understand. So they, being situated in the mode of goodness, people who, and how do you situate in the mode of goodness? When you want to become, want to go on trekking, then you associate with people who are, going on trekking, especially in this time. If you are, if you want to become very learned in IT, then you want to associate with people who are very learned in IT fields. You won't associate with people who are very learned in commerce field or, in medical field. If you want to advance in medical field, then you associate with people who are in medical field. So again, our association defines who we become and who we are. And so similarly, here, it has been revealed that to be able to rise to the mode of goodness, one has to associate with people who are in the mode of goodness at least. And if they are transcendent to the three modes, if they are in pure goodness, Vishuddha Sattva, then that's even better. Because then it really speeds up the journey. And Srila Prabhupada, when he established, and the initiation in a parampara, in the disciplic succession by a spiritual master, is really to first help us rise above the three modes of material nature. And when we talk about these religious principles, they are directly related to the prohibitions and inhibitions. So again, the regulations in devotional service. So the four limbs of religious principles are austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So of course in Satyuga we know that all four were there, right? And so people could, they were referred to as Haṁsas. Haṁsas are swans. And what is the characteristic of a Haṁsa? A Haṁsa, a swan, has this characteristic, this ability that when there is milk mixed with water is presented, it can take away the milk without touching the water. So again, it will not drink the water, it will just drink the milk part of that mixture. So this is again, since this question is being raised by Uddhava, the presence, Lord appears in Haṁsa form, as Haṁsa avatāra, is also very significant. Because he is going to separate, the various other philosophies, the mundane philosophies, and separate out the milk, the truth, the absolute truth, from that of devotional services, how one can transcend the three modes of material nature. And so, now sometimes people ask, well, we talk about in Satyuga, people had all the four limbs, they were there. And as Satyuga, ended and Treta Yuga started, austerity went away, right? So in Satyuga, people could meditate for tens of thousands of years. Prachetas meditated for 10,000 years. So, but our lifespan is not that long. We only have 100 years. And people in Satyuga used to have 100,000 years of age they could live. And like Romasha Rishi and many of the Markandeya Rishi and many others, they have even lived beyond that time frame. But we don't have that ability. So in Treta Yuga, people could not perform such austerity because in Treta Yuga, the age reduced to about 10,000 years, average age. So, but cleanliness was there. So they could perform yajnas, right? So by performing fire sacrifices, cleanliness was there, the 6 types of cleanliness, the place, the person, paraphernalia and so forth, they could attain perfection also. They can attain knowledge and perfection. But with the going of Treta Yuga, even that leg of Dharma is broken. So cleanliness is also not there. So the remaining 2 are mercy and truthfulness. So in Dwapara Yuga, the process was to go on pilgrimage and to associate with the devotees. It's not like going on pilgrimage, taking bath and visiting the temples and then taking prasad and come back. That was not the process. The process is when you go on pilgrimage, you associate with the saintly persons, the devotees at that place, and hear from them the transcendental knowledge. acquire from them in a submissive mode for your own benefit. So we do that for our own benefit, for our own purification. But and the Dwapara Yuga, Lord Krishna himself appeared. So paricharyayam. So by serving his lotus feet, one can obtain perfection, and with the association of devotees at various holy places. And it is very nicely said by Yudhishthira Maharaj when he meets his uncle Vidur, that devotees themselves carry the holy pilgrimage with them, the holy place with them. And devotees, disciples of Srila Prabhupada reveal that wherever Srila Prabhupada would go, he would, as if he was carrying Vaikuntha with him. He was carrying Vrindavan with him. So just by his presence, people would feel the presence of Vrindavan. And that's the potency of a devotee. So a pure devotee of Lord Shri Krishna, just by his presence, he can purify. Just by his, momentary association, he can purify all the living entities just by his presence. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Gaya, Lava Mata Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Haya. So just by a momentary association of a devotee, one can attain all perfection, Sarv Siddhi ki prapti ho sakti hai. So again, one can attain all kind of, mystic powers, and especially transcend the three modes of material nature. That's the true mystic potency. And here Lord Krishna is revealing that just by coming to the mode of goodness, one can, understand the religious principles. And in Kali age, even the mercy is there, but truthfulness is still here. And we can take to the process of devotional service. And Shukdev Goswami reveals in 12th Canto that how this Kali age is even more glorified than any of the previous ages, right? Because we only have such a short age. We talked about some of the characteristics people born in the Kali age have. Yet at the same time, he is revealing Kalera dosha nidhe rajan asti he eko mahan guna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. Kalera dosha nidhe rajan. This age of Kali, the present age, the current age, is an ocean of faults. Dosh nidhe rajan. Asti ha eko mahan guna. However, it has one great quality. Kirtana deva krishnasya, just by singing the glories of Lord Shri Krishna. Mukta sangha param vrajet. One can be mukta sangha. So one can be relieved from the clutches of modes of material nature. So the material modes are also referred to as guna. Guna also means rope. So we are in the clutches of this material energy, yet at the same time we can relieve ourselves from the clutches. And param vrajit, and attain the supreme abode, the supreme destination. And that is through the process of attaining, a process of devotional service, we can attain the love of Godhead. That is the goal. And one of the side effects of attaining love of Godhead is that we are able to go back home, back to Godhead. So here we talked about how we can engage in devotional service, right? Sambandha abhidheya prayojana. So sambandh is first to understand that we are living entities. Jivera sarupoya Krishna nityadas. That as living entities we are eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. So our purpose is to serve Lord Shri Krishna. So what is abhidheya? The process. The process is to engage in devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. The 9th process of devotional service, as Prahlad Maharaj reveals in the 7th Canto. And by following the processes of devotional service, we can attain the love of Godhead. So what is the purpose of life? It is very important to understand. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. So that is a serious inquiry one should make. That what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why am I in this material world? Why am I suffering? Why is there calamities all over there? Why is there COVID-19 tormenting all of the nations of this world, and the great personalities who are thinking that they are so powerful are so scared of it, wearing masks, right? Srila Prabhupada once, he was talking to a gentleman, and the gentleman was saying, "Oh, I do not fear." So Srila Prabhupada asked him, "Do you stop when the traffic light turns red?" He said, "Yes." Then Srila Prabhupada said, "Then you fear?" and he was defeated right then and there. And Srila Prabhupada, by his example, he was showing that how a devotee can be fearless, because a devotee has transcended three modes of material nature. And in this chapter, Lord Krishna reveals that just like a drunkard is not aware whether he is wearing a coat, whether he is wearing a shirt, similarly, a devotee who has transcended, a living entity who has transcended three modes of material nature and is situated, in this transcendental state, Vishuddha Sattva, at that point, a devotee does not care what kind of body does it have, and the external manifestation. Rather, is constantly meditating on Lord Shri Krishna, his name, form, activities, pastimes, and his associates and devotees. So that gets added on. So again, we have been talking about, when we talk about remembering Lord Shri Krishna and how to purify existence, that we should constantly be in Smarana Leela, constantly remembering the sublime, the sweet pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. As Janmashtami is approaching, I know everyone is so much filled with emotions and so much filled with Krishna Katha. It is very enriching and very purifying to our heart, to our very existence. And we are constantly immersed. Iti driksva leela bhirananda kunde. We are constantly being immersed in this ocean of bliss when we are hearing about Lord Shri Krishna, when we are seeing Vrindavan, when we are seeing, Mayapur, when we are seeing places where Lord Krishna performed his various pastimes, sweet pastimes, with the gopis, with the cowherd boys, with Yashoda Mai, with Nand Baba. And also we talk about Bhagavad Gita as how Lord Shri Krishna, he revealed the supreme truth, the absolute truth to Arjun, situating him in his true position, in his Sanatan Dharma. So Sanatan Dharma is our eternal religion, and Swadharma is our prescribed duties. When they are aligned, then we are, successful in our endeavor. So here, it is very important that one has to rise to the mode of goodness. And so Srila Prabhupada, he made sure that, by establishing that there are 4 prohibitions or, yam, things we should not do. So what are the 4 things when we take initiation we should not do? First is no meat eating, right? Actually, let's start with the various religious limbs of religion. So in Satyuga, we talk about, austerity, right? But austerity got destroyed by intoxication. So no intoxication is the first thing, because it destroys austerity, the ability for us to meditate, the ability for us to be in our presence and be aware that we are the spirit soul, and our supreme purpose is to engage in serving Lord Shri Krishna for his pleasure, not for our pleasure, rather for our purification. So we want to be in a pure state externally and internally by not taking any intoxication. And it's very interesting, the very word is intoxication. Toxic is something which is bad, right? And so people who are mad, you could say, are going through this intoxication and detoxification cycle. So they go through detoxification, go to retreats for their purification, and then they come back and say, oh, I have worked too hard, let me enjoy some. And then they intoxicate themselves, they put the toxics back in, and they're back to where they started from. And that is such a shameva hi kevalam. This is just useless labor, as we learn from Srimad Bhagavatam. That any activity that we perform does not increase our affection, our attraction towards Lord Shri Krishna, it's just useless labor. So austerity is destroyed due to intoxication. So we should not take any intoxication, including any liquid containing caffeine like the sodas and so forth. And cleanliness is destroyed because of illicit sex, right? So sex is allowed in marriage life, right? Between husband and wife, for the progeny to beget children. So in a regulated manner still that should be done. And a person, a householder, when as a grahastha carrying out his prescribed duties, is also known as ascetic. So that is amazing. So all of you who have been keeping yourself clean and in married life, just having, engaging in for the progeny in this manner, staying clean, then you are also ascetics, not just the sages who are ascetics, but anyone who is following cleanliness. is an ascetic. So in Dwapar Yuga, mercy went away, right? That is because of meat eating. Because meat eating destroys mercy, destroys the compassion towards other living entity. And people become cruel and harsh, and anger arises very quickly in them. So those are the effects. And in Kali age, truthfulness is destroyed by gambling. And sometimes people even refer to as 401k as gambling. I do not have any 401k for that very reason. Because I decided if you have to give up gambling, why keep 401k? So truthfulness is destroyed through this process. And the purpose of all these various, no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex, all these 4 principles basically lead us to rise to the mode of goodness, because it purifies our existence, yet we are still in the mode of material nature, which is mode of goodness. And even though we have simple life, we have high principles, we are living very simply and having an austere life, we have to engage in devotional service and the association of devotees to transcend the mode of goodness. So Lord Krishna is revealing that one can transcend, and he talks about the 10 types of objects, basically referring to various elements that one associates with based on the quality. So based on the modes of material nature, one can have the quality of these 10 objects. So first one is talking of religious scriptures. So in the mode of goodness, one associates with the bona fide scriptures that purify our existence. So we read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the transcendental literature, so that we even rise from the mode of goodness to mode of pure goodness, right? So that's above mode of goodness. This is not a material mode. Vishuddha Sattva, it's transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature. So in mode of goodness, and while in mode of passion, people associate with reading scriptures which lead to fruitive results, right? Name, fame, glories, to rise to heavenly planets. So therefore purpose is to enjoy, eat, sleep and be merry. So they are looking for those kind of scriptures. And so, but at the same time, they're constantly, Lord Krishna reveals here that people in the mode of passion are constantly facing unhappiness. They're constantly in distress, they're constantly suffering, but they're going on this path, right? Because this is, even though living entity, we are anand bhaya abhyasat, we are constantly seeking happiness. We are, what are the 3 characteristics of a living entity? The qualitatively, we are qualitatively same as Lord Shri Krishna, but quantitatively we are different. We are minuscule, he is magnanimous. So, eternity, knowledge and bliss. So we are eternal souls, we are full of knowledge and we are full of bliss. So, but being conditioned in this material world, we are constantly facing unhappiness, distress, right? The 3 kinds of distress: Adi Bhautik, Adi Daivik, Adhyatmik. Adi Bhautik is distress coming, miseries coming from other living entities. Adi Daivik is distress coming from natural disturbances, from the demigods. And Adhyatmik, coming from our own mind, our own body, our own self. And the third one is the most dangerous one, because it has the snowball effect, right? We can create a mountain out of a mole. So again, we have to understand. So this religious scriptures. And then the third mode of ignorance, they ignore religious scriptures. So they are constantly, just being lazy, doing whatever they feel like, and they are constantly in distress. Water in the 3 modes of material nature. The second element he's talking about is people in the mode of goodness like to drink pure water, pure nourishing water to the body. And Lord Krishna says, I am the taste in water. So when, in mode of goodness, when a devotee drinks, water is constantly a reminder of Lord Shri Krishna, because it quenches the thirst. While in the mode of passion, people take to drinking all kind of abominable liquids even. But they are more, driven towards, liquid that have flavors and they have different kind of elements, and there could be chemicals which could be harmful for body. While in the mode of ignorance, people are engaged in drinking all kind of intoxicants, right? Whiskey, beer, and so forth, which actually cause them to lose their very self. And in this process, they lose the ability to perform any kind of austerity. They become lazy and they're sleeping most of the time. Then there is discussion of one's association with one's children and with people in general. So what kind of association we have? So in the mode of goodness, one has the association with other people who are in the mode of goodness, or who are even transcending the modes of goodness, or have transcended the three modes of material nature, because the religious principles are being recognized at that state. So one takes to the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we all know that when we are chanting, we want to be in the association of other devotees who are chanting as well, right? So we all glorifying Lord Shri Krishna together. That's why kirtans are so famous in this age, and that's the yajna. Krite tadadhayate vishnum tretayam yajto make dwapare pariyacharyayam kalo tadhari kirtanat. So in the Kali age, one can attain perfection just by glorifying Lord Shri Krishna, by Hari Kirtan. So, and then association matters. While people in the mode of passion are associated with people who are looking for name, fame, glories, and rising to the, heavenly planets. So people who are in similar positions, and they are trying to see that, oh, if this is a great position, how do I acquire it? If they see a beautiful person in the opposite sex, then they want to say, how do I, become lord or master of that person? If they see that this is palatable food out there, even though it may be very spicy and all, they always think, how do I get to taste it? So they are all driven, in the mode of passion, driven by these various elements. So the association is also with similar people. In the mode of ignorance, being lazy, their association is people who are lazy, procrastinating, anything and everything, including the scriptures and the very life. They just spend away their life like that. The time. So in the mode of goodness, people wake up early during Brahma Muhurat. We start to chant the holy name. So by chanting the holy name, we purify internally and externally. So we talked about the actions. They can be performed in three ways: mind, body, and words. Body refers to the senses, right? The knowledge acquiring senses and the working senses. And then words are what we speak. So that also determines. And the time is again, Brahma Muhurat is where the mode of goodness is prominent. Then during the daytime, mode of passion is prominent. 9 to 5 jobs. Everyone go for economic development to earn money, right? And then evening onwards till next to the Brahma Muhurat is the mode of passion is prominent. So again, that's where entertainment is being sought and people are being lazy and sleeping most of the time. And they are carrying out activities which do not lead to any happiness, especially when they're in the mode of passion, and especially in the mode of ignorance, they are completely, oblivious to everything that's around them. So time is also a very important matter, that what kind of activity is what's performing at what time. So the activities is the sixth element Lord Krishna reveals. What kind of activity a person in the mode of goodness engages in, constantly, leading simple life, higher thoughts, keeping straightforward interactions. In the mode of passion, people are engaged in all kind of endeavors, right? Atyahara prayasya prajalpo niyamagraha jana sangasya lolyam cha sadvira bhakti vinashyati. So in the mode of passion itself, the devotional service is destroyed over a period of time. So once ability to engage in devotional service, it diminishes bhakti, right? Vinashyati, vinash ho jata hai, so it gets destroyed. Atyahara, acquiring more than necessary. Atyahara also means eating more than required. So in mode of goodness, you eat just sufficient to maintain your body. And Srila Prabhupada gave a very simple formula. Eat to fill half of your stomach with food stuff, 1/4 with water, and leave 1/4 empty for air, so that our body can easily, circulate and digest the food that we have and can maintain and keep us strong enough. While atyahara is because of all the spicy food is there, people overeat and they have the tendency to acquire more than necessary. That's a human tendency in this age we talk about. Like, when you spread grains or keep a big container of rice outside, the birds will come, they will take the grains that they need. Animals will come, they will take what they need. But if a human being sees it, he'll take the whole container. So that's a tendency in the mode of passion. People are very much looking to take away things. So that's why the society is feeling so much distress, because of the tendency that we are not in the mode of goodness, where the dealings are simple. Rather, we are, people are in the mode of passion and ignorance, where the dealings are how to snatch away from others and acquire and preserve for ourselves. And people who are for our expansions, right? Our family members and friends and relatives and so forth. Now, birth is also very important. The modes we take birth. So devotees take care that they perform this Garbhadhan Samskar to invite an elevated soul to become, to take to the womb and be a baby, so that it becomes easier for them to advance further and attain the supreme perfection, love of Godhead. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, he said that he is ready to have 100 children if they are all Krishna conscious. So he was a brahmachari, but he was saying that he is ready to marry if he can have and even have hundreds of children, provided they are all Krishna conscious. So that is the purpose of begetting children, that we should make sure that our children are taking to devotion service. They are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita with us. They are engaging in kirtan, playing some instruments and so forth. And it is our duty as parents to engage them, to encourage them. And we should make it very susukham kartum avayam, very pleasurable. We should not force them. Just show them that how pleasurable this devotion service is, how wonderful Lord Krishna and Radharani they are, that they're constantly dancing and blessing their devotees. Automatically, people will be attracted, and our kids will be attracted to devotional service. And do it in a very sublime, happy mood, in a pleasurable mood, so that it attracts. Because Krishna is all attractive. So when we are chanting, we should be chanting and praying for them as well. So again, we are praying for ourselves, but then when we are looking, and sometimes parents ask us that how can we make sure that our children are taking to this process? It's very simple, just pray for them. And the prayer is also very simple. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In the mood of praying that please make us children a devotee of Lord Shri Krishna. Please accept them as your devotees and engage in their devotional service. So that's how. And then, eighth one is meditation. So what kind of meditation one has in the different modes is also very important. In mode of goodness, one is meditating on, transcending the mode completely. So meditating on Lord Shri Krishna, His name, form, activities, pastimes, associations and devotees, associates and devotees. So that is also, that gets added on two additional elements. Chanting of mantras. What kind of mantras people chant? So again, meditation in the mode of passion is, how do I get to, enjoy things in this world, get name, fame and glories. Mode of ignorance is, nobody disturb me, I just want to sleep, completely blank. Chanting of mantras are also very different in the three modes of material nature. In mode of goodness, one takes to the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. While in the mode of passion, one takes to the chanting of mantras that give fruitive results, so that they can enjoy, they can prosper, and they can have nice positions. So they want to elevate to the heavenly planets. They don't want any calamity to come to them. All those mantras that, provide them those kind of solutions. And last but not the least, 10th is the purificatory rituals. Now, in the mode of goodness and in transcendental mode, the devotees, they are constantly performing rituals which have understanding the essence behind them, and the essence is to please Lord Shri Krishna. So all activities that please Lord Shri Krishna, they are performing those activities. Like deity worship, offering of prasad, bhoga to the deities, whatever food stuff has been prepared, first offering it to the deities. And love and devotion are essential elements, Srila Prabhupada stresses, with which we engage. And now Lord Shri Krishna, he gives an amazing analogy. He's saying that just like in the bamboo forest, because of the wind, the bamboos, they rub against each other. And so with the rubbing of the bamboos against each other, sometimes the sparks appear and the fire catches onto the wood, the bamboos itself. And so the fire destroys the very cause of its appearance, the bamboo forest. So the very source of the birth of fire is annihilated. So similarly, by taking to devotional service, we can remove the effect of the modes of material nature, we can transcend them. So in this chapter, we are learning as how we can overcome the obstacles in spiritual advancement. And to be able to advance spiritually, we have to first transcend the three modes of material nature. So that is the stress that Lord Krishna is giving and revealing to Uddhav. Now Uddhav, when he is inquiring, Lord Krishna reveals about that the four Kumaras headed by Sanaka inquired this from Lord Brahmā. So Lord Brahmā, when he gave birth, means again from his mind, the four Kumaras appeared. Sanak, Sanatan, Sanat Kumar and Sanandana. So these four, when they appeared and Lord Brahmā, asked them, so they actually had a question for Lord Brahmā. They said that mind is constantly engaged in meditating on the material objects. And so how can one free oneself? Because, mind is driven by the senses who want to interact with these sense objects. And that time, even Lord Brahmā, he was performing his activities of creation, which is in the mode of passion. He's, responsible. He's the one who is the controller of the mode of passion. Even he wanted to give an answer, but because of his activities, right, because of the nature born of activities, he could not respond to that question. So he immediately meditated on Lord Shri Krishna. And it is very instructive for all of us that we should immediately take to the higher power. Take shelter of a devotee of Lord Shri Krishna, an associate of Lord Shri Krishna or Lord Shri Krishna, and his books are not different, right? Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Lord Shri Krishna. So when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, so many of our questions are immediately answered. And Mahatma Gandhi in Bhagavad Gita, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, he reveals. So there is a quote given by Mahatma Gandhi here. When doubts haunt me, when disappointments start me in the face, and I see not one ray of hope on the horizon, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me. And I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meaning from it every day. By Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. So again, it has been revealed again by many great personalities, many famous personalities and various devotees and associates of Lord Shri Krishna, that just by taking to reading of bona fide scriptures, we can relieve ourselves. And here, as Lord Krishna is revealing, Uddhav becomes curious that when they ask this question, what happened? So Lord Krishna is revealing to Uddhav that at that time when Brahma was meditating on me, I appeared as Haṁsa avatāra in the form of a swan. So that picture is actually given here. It's a beautiful picture as how Lord appears as Haṁsa avatāra. So Lord Krishna appearing as Haṁsa avatāra to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma and the four Kumaras, they worship. So, headed by Lord Brahma, they worship the Haṁsa avatāra. And this is where we would like to stop, because there are various amazing lessons. So one of the important things that we have covered today in this class is that first one has to rise to the mode of goodness. And the way to rise to mode of goodness is to follow the four regulatory principles, which is no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. Because we want to understand, we want to establish and strengthen the four legs of dharma. Sometimes people also refer to the purpose of life is to the earth, jnana, moksha, kama moksha, Dharma, Artha and Kam, Moksha. So Dharma is religion, religious principles, following religious principles. Artha is economic development. Kam is enjoyment. And then Moksha is to attain liberation. So in the Grihastha life it applies very well, these four factors. Other ashrams it doesn't apply, because if you look at it from sannyas ashram, anasaktesya visham yatharma poyanjata nirbandha krishna sambandhe yukta vairagyam uchyate. So proper renunciation is dovetailing everything in service of Lord Shri Krishna, because everything in this material world is an expansion of Lord's potencies, his unlimited potencies. The external potency expands and manifests in the form of this material universes. So again, that's quite very much going into the next chapter, but we have to understand that we have to transcend the two modes, mode of passion and mode of ignorance, and that's just by following these four regulative principles and taking to the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, and we'll continue the remaining part in the next class today in the evening. Hare Krishna. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai, Nitaya Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.